Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You might be wondering why I look like I'm from the CIA and wearing dark sunglasses when I'm inside my house. Or why I'm even making a topic on something that isn't a horrible romanticization of abuse. Because clearly, my channel has the pattern. Well, you may not know this about me, but I am a weeb. Not just a weeb. I'm probably the biggest weeb you probably know. Now, that may not be obvious because, again, I've only made videos about books that are blatant romanticizations of abuse, but I am actually a weeb. I like anime and stuff. So, you may also not know this about me, but I'm also a Disney fan, or used to be until I realized that the company supports forceful conversion camps. So, when I heard that there was a game that would combine these two loves of mine, I was excited. And the way I found out was over a YouTuber named Ami Yoshiko, and yeah, it was fun. It was fun because I didn't actually watch her play through that game in chronological order, so I ended up just being really confused. But enough about my confusion. What's this game called, and why am I talking about it? Well, it's called Twisted Wonderland, and basically it's filled with hot anime boys inspired by Disney villains, which, if that interests you, I'm sorry to disappoint, but the game is a Japanese exclusive, so it might be a bit hard to download, and you're also gonna need a translation because there's no English version yet. The way I found out about it was through playthroughs, and the way I know the plot is because every single one of those playthroughs had subtitles, so I could, follow along. But the basic gist of the game is you're a bland, anime-ish protagonist with undefined gender named you, and you end up in this magical school called Night Raven College, which teaches wizards how to be wizards. Basically, it's Harry Potter, just with hot anime boys inspired by Disney villains. And I am going to tell you that if you don't know or haven't heard or haven't played this game, you probably want to avoid this video until I get back to the topics that I usually discuss here. So, just a disclaimer, we're about to get into some spoiler territory, and if you want to enjoy the game, normally, you might want to step off now. Now, on to those who have actually heard and, know what's going on in the game currently. This video is for you. So, one of the main cash cows of this game, and the person who's all over the advertisement, is the principal of this fine institution, Dire Crowley. Yes, his name is Dire Crowley. It sounds dumb, just work with me here. And he is a very mysterious man. Now, when I say mysterious, I don't mean like mysterious as in we don't see him. No, I mean mysterious as we do see him a lot, but we know nothing about him. And that's suspicious because, well, we know almost everything about everyone else. Even Divas Corell and Vergas, we know a lot about them, but we don't know shit about Crowley, which is a bit weird, considering, you slapped him all over the freaking advertisements everywhere, Yana Toboso, but, But, then I thought to myself, I had a little thinky think, if you will. Maybe Crowley's planning something. And I'm not the only one who thinks this. It's basically accepted canon of the fandom at this point. And I just love how this fandom has, a collective mind where they agree that yes, some things are the way they are and everyone just has the same idea. Which, good. I mean, at least the fandom isn't toxic from what I've seen, which is nice for a change. Coming from the BNHA fandom. So, back to Crowley. Why is he shady, you may be asking? Because if you only played the first part of this game, again, as I said, spoilers, but you might be thinking, he seems perfectly nice to me. I mean, he's a little incompetent, but it's not anything horrible, right? And to that I say, wrong! Wrong! It started with the promotional material, I swear to you. Now, I rewatch the Twisted Wonderland trailer, like, I don't know, one time every day. So, when you look at Crowley's behavior in that trailer, it's a little weird. Because if he really was a goofy principal who just was very shitty at his job, you'd think he'd be a bit more friendly seeming in the advertisement for the game. But no, he just stands around, smirks creepily, and walks in like he owns the place. Which seems an odd presentation choice, doesn't it? But just because someone looks suspicious doesn't mean you can call them suspicious, now does it? Well, of course not, because that would be stupid. And I'm not entirely stupid. But I have receipts, my friends, because where the real Crowley shadiness starts is part 2 of the game, which is Leona Kingscollar's Overblood story. Yay! So, how does Crowley behave in this situation? Well, first, when he finds out that there's some sabotage regarding Magift, he doesn't inform all the dorm leaders that, like, look, you is going to be doing some investigating, and you might want to be forthcoming with information, and you might want to help them. No. Crowley doesn't do that. He doesn't even give information or say, like, anything to anybody. He doesn't even inform the dorm leaders of, like, anything. Which should be common knowledge, you'd think, so they can protect their dorm mates or something, or, you know, keep an eye out. But no. That would be too simple. Now, Crowley also enlists Hugh's help, obviously, because they're the protagonists and thus have to be involved in everything. But he doesn't even give them a helping hand, like, no one to assist them, aside from Grim, who's a literal cat, so that's not going to be very helpful now, is it? And after Leona overblots, which I'm sure Crowley knows about, he doesn't even keep an eye on him. You might be saying that he should expel Leona, because, you know, attempted murder and all that, but Leona's a prince, so if Crowley tries to expel him, that might be a little bit of an issue with everybody. And you might be saying, well, Leona didn't actually kill anybody, and he was only trying to kill Malleus, so what gives? And to that I say you're not a true Twisted Wonderland fan, because if you don't have overprotective feelings towards Malleus, you're not a true Twisted Wonderland fan. But aside from that, I say Malleus is the prince of a country. Leona is the prince of a country. If the two of them come to a conflict, that could start a war, which isn't exactly good, and you shouldn't exactly gloss over that. But what does Crowley do in relation to Leona? Can you tell I didn't have a script? He does nothing. He doesn't even keep an eye on him. He doesn't even do anything to prevent Leona from doing this again. Doesn't give him any therapy, nothing. Nothing. He does nothing. Which, like, okay, once. And, like, he was busy with the Magift tournament and everything, and yeah, I know. So, maybe it just passed Crowley's mind. Maybe he didn't have the time. Maybe he didn't have the energy. I mean, exams were coming up, so everything is fine, right? Then it happens again with Azul. Now, when Yu goes to complain about their friends being internally a slave to Azul for the rest of their school years, Crowley goes, you know, something like this happened before. And I gave him the Monster Lounge. Which, like, first off, that's not an appropriate reaction to someone doing this sort of bullshit, firstly. Secondly, Crowley, you're the principal. Just close the thing down. Like, you have that sort of authority. You gave it to him. You can take it back. And it's not like Leona where Azul's a prince, so he can just demand what he wants. No. Azul's not a prince. I mean, even if he tried to blackmail Crowley somehow, Crowley can just deny it. Who'll take Azul's word over his. And what are Jade and Floyd gonna do? They're just gonna bitch. Like, you're not losing anything. And when Azul overblots and, tries to steal everyone's magic, which would basically get tons of parents on your ass about their magic not working anymore, and does this school being irresponsible, again, does Crowley supervise Azul? Does he at least remove him from his spot as dorm leader? No. Again, Crowley does nothing. He does absolutely nothing for any of this shit. Which is unbelievable. He doesn't even, take away the Monster Lounge as a precaution that Azul might not do this again. No. Again, Crowley does nothing. Nothing. And then there's Jamil, which, explains itself, I think, because when Jamil asks, completely reasonably, why Kaleem should be the dorm head of Scarabia because he just blatantly doesn't fit in there, Crowley says this. You see, they gave me money, so I'm going to make their son the dorm head. Now, you might be saying, that doesn't prove that Crowley's shady, or that he's having some bigger plan in all this. But I tell you, Crowley spends money like it's a fucking allowance. This man gave a kid a fucking lounge like it was nothing. Clearly, he doesn't lack money. He doesn't even really bother. He isn't really bothered by making huge renovations or spending money willy-nilly. He does it all the time. So it's not exactly like he has to keep this money from the Azims. It's not like it's gonna benefit him in any way. Unless he's setting Jamil up for something much, much later. Now, about his voice message to you saying that he's on vacation. Why would you leave that as a voice message? Now, I know if I were vacationing instead of doing my job, I would make sure that the voice message that the person, and the only person I gave the phone to, is going to get will sound super responsible and like I'm doing my job. Because I want people to think I'm doing my job. What does Crowley do? He basically says that he's on vacation and tries to cover it up. Now that's just like you're trying to seem incompetent at your job. Which seems a bit weird since Crowley doesn't ever, seem insecure about his position. I don't know, it just seems weird to me. And when Jamil comes back from his overblood, in which, he tried to mind control the entire dorm, tried to mind control Azul, tried to mind control Kaleem, and does get him kicked out, what does Crowley do? Say it with me. Nothing. He does nothing. Which, expected from him. I know, but still, I know why he didn't expel Jamil, because Kaleem would have gotten on his ass about it, but why not just, keep an eye on the kid with hypnosis magic? It seems like a no-brainer, really, but apparently not to Crowley. So, yeah, it's a little weird that he doesn't at least consider to keep an eye on these kids when they've shown homicidal intentions. But I'm sure that with Vil, he'll get better. It will be fine, I told myself, naively. It wasn't, because Crowley allows Ace, Jamil, you, and Appel into Vil's group. Now, let me explain to you why that's a bad idea. Because Ace started this whole shit when he defied the Riddle's authority. Jamil just recently rebelled against authority, Appel already has problems with Vil, and Yu's always there when overblots happen. It's like you're inviting disaster. And then it clicked. In my head, it clicked. Crowley wants bad things to happen to these kids. He wants them to overblot. Because he's based off the evil queen's crow. It all makes sense. Because Crowley wants to bring the 7 back. Now, you may be laughing at me from beyond your screens, but think about it. Why else would you allow this sort of behavior to just go on unnoticed and unprecedented for no reason? Unless you're trying to accomplish something shady. Now, let's think about this a bit more. Crowley also has access to the Mirror of Darkness basically the entire year. We don't know where this man lives. Basically, he could live in this school for all we know. So, he could tamper with it. He could make things go in his favor if he so wishes. Because, well, who's gonna stop him? I mean, that's the reason Ace is in Heartslabule. That's why Appel's in Pomefiore. That's why Kaleem got an invitation to Night Raven and ended up in Scarabia. Because Crowley planned it all. But what's exactly the point of agitating certain students? What is the point? What's the end goal? Because, dear viewer, I believe that Jamil, Azul, Leona, Riddle, Vil, Idia, and Nalius are reincarnations, or at least descendants, of the Great Seven. Now, hear me out. Think about it. Recently, Mickey's appeared in this game, and he seems to be very confused as to what's happening, and seems to be very panicked about something. Or at least, he's trying to contact you for some reason, which is weird, because why would you bother with a school for mentally unstable teenagers? Unless this is having some sort of negative effect on something that's Mickey's business. And, bringing the 7 back would be negative, right? Now, let me explain to you what I mean by this. Crowley purposefully put them in these situations, so to say, because he wanted them to overblot, and thus for villains to possess them. Think about it. What's the first overblot we see before Riddles, or at least something similar to it? That dwarf from the mine. And where do we see dwarves? Snow White. And whose crow is Crowley based off of? The Evil Queen's. It all connects because if Crowley makes it seem like the overblot isn't exclusive to just the students, he can cover up his tracks. And then, when Riddle overblotted, Crowley probably assumed this would go completely unchecked, everyone in Heartslabule would die, and the Queen of Hearts would be back, thus striking terror into the school, making the overblots easier. But when Riddle didn't die, Crowley had to rearrange himself a little bit. Now, we all know that, Heartslabule would have gotten involved in the whole Savannah Claw incident. You or not you. So, there would have probably been an overblot with Leona anyways. And the Ace and Deuce would have probably tried to, change the contract. Or at least, find a way to get it back. Maybe not bother Leona, but it would have eventually ended up in Azul doing that. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking this whole thing wrong. But Crowley did kind of intend for them to overblot. Maybe he just didn't have the kinks worked out yet. But there is definitely something he's planning. And maybe the overblots allow the villains to slowly break out of those statues. Because they're trapped there. I mean, why else would there be statues? I mean, sure, my school is called after a national hero, but we don't have a statue of the guy. We don't have a picture of him. I mean, we do. I'm talking about my elementary school. I'm in high school now, but the point is, we don't have a statue of the guy. Maybe Japanese schools function differently, but where I'm from, you don't put the founders of your school in statue form right outside the backyard. I'm just saying it seems a little weird to me. Now, let's talk about the events. Again, in these events, Crowley does absolutely nothing. But what I want you to focus on in one particular event is ghost marriage. Because if you're a Greek mythology nerd like I am, you'll think, this is like reverse Hades and Persephone, right? And then it hits you. By, becoming dead, Idia will become something of the dead, which means he can probably control the dead and get revenge on people who fail to save him, thus making him overblood and bringing Hades back, because, well, Idia's dead. If Idia's dead, his soul, which is Hades' soul, by the way, would go to Hades, wouldn't it? See, it all makes sense up in this noggin. So, how exactly did Crowley, or how exactly does Crowley intend to bring the Seven back? Well, it would have to be something really, really smart, because none of these kids died. None of these fucking kids died, and them dying might be kind of important to Crowley, because, otherwise the Seven can take over their bodies or something. So, it's kind of important to him that they do. So he'd have to do something really drastic. Exhaust them to the point of them dying, or to the point where they're weak enough that they're basically dead and can be easily overtaken. And that brings us to the very commonly accepted theory that Grimm will overblood from all the black rocks, and thus be a very powerful beast, taking the properties of all the overbloods before him, and thus being the main cog in Crowley's now very, very much broken, but still somewhat functioning machine. Because, well, if he has all those powers and all the overblots were barely taken down, that would exhaust pretty much everybody, meaning... So, yeah. Now, for a bit of backstory of how I think Crowley got into this situation and position, and my theory that he's the only principal Night Raven's ever had, he's just kept changing aliases. Here's what I think happened. So, the Descendants movies? Those Disney Channel films where the villains had kids? Yeah, I think it was something like that. The villains were all brought back and banished to Twisted Wonderland. Or, well, it wasn't Twisted Wonderland this time. Basically, they ruled there a bit. The heroes realized it wasn't going exactly as well as they thought. They defeated them. And the heroes' descendants founded Royal Swords Academy. But before the villains were defeated and banished into statues, they gave Grimhild, Grimhild's the name of the evil queen, by the way, if you didn't know, fun fact, Crow human form and told him to make a school for villains. And they will find a reincarnation that suits them. To some reincarnation spell. Well, I'm not sure the Queen of Hearts had a reincarnation. I think Riddle is actually her descendant, and in Malleus's case, he might be both. But, this theory isn't exactly like, I haven't worked out all the kinks yet, but I think that I'm close to the truth. So, through this, Crowley will, bring back the Seven and his mistress, so, win-win for him. So Crowley started building Night Raven College and waited and waited and waited till the reincarnations that he needed showed up. And then he started working on a way to weaken them enough to bring back the Seven. Until you showed up and ruined everything. Those meddling kids, right? So that's my theory. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm probably gonna do one more Twisted Wonderland video before resuming my regular content of complaining about books. So yeah, bye.